Double R Ramblin' Ray in for Steve. The lawsuits are coming fast and furious for Northwestern University. The allegations, the things that we're hearing about are just, it's almost too much to just fathom. These are the fourth and fifth lawsuits filed on behalf of former Northwestern football players by attorney Ben Crump and Levin Perconti in the past week. Lawyers plan to file more lawsuits. There's more coming. And now we have named players. Warren Miles Long, who played for the Wildcats from 2013 to 18, and John Doe, too, who played for the team in 2015 and 19, both allege that they were subjected to ongoing sexual, physical, and emotional abuse during their time, not only at NU, but at Camp Kenosha, and on it goes. So let's bring into the show Margaret Battersby Black, managing partner of Chicago-based Levin Perconti. Good morning, Margaret. How are you?
Good morning, Ray. Thanks for having me.
You are very welcome. My first question for you is, now we have names. We're going to get more names. How far do you think this is going to go? You have inside information that I don't have. I know that you have more clients that you're working with. Tell us what we don't know about the size of this.
Yeah, well, we certainly have more lawsuits that'll be filed in the coming weeks that we're working on right now. What I can say from having fielded, hundreds of calls over the past several weeks is that the depth of this is far-reaching. It goes back, into at a minimum the early 2000s, and I believe was going on up until the past season. And so the real question is, who is going to be brave enough to come forward? Because I have players who have come to us who have said, I now know that what happened was wrong, and I want to make sure it doesn't happen again and speak out. And those are the ones who've been identified in the lawsuits. I have probably more than that who have said, I want to make sure that, I get justice and that this doesn't happen to others, but I'm still afraid of the power of the Northwestern faithful, and I don't want, anyone to know that it's me. And then I have even more who are still on the fence about whether to come out, even though we have these great protections for victims of sexual abuse where they can be named as John or Jane Does in court filings. They fear that putting any details about their abuse into a lawsuit will cause speculation, and some of them are still trying to have a career in professional sports or in coaching. And so really, I think it's I think there will be more, and I think the more that these folks come forward and show their bravery, it could inspire others.
It's a culture that we need to pay attention to. And before anybody asks the question, well, these are men, these are tough guys, how can this happen? I just want to remind you that there were 100 allegations brought against Larry Nassar with the U.S. Olympic gymnastics women's team before somebody finally said, hey, maybe we should look into this. We're speaking with Margaret Battersby Black, managing partner at Chicago-based Levin Perconti. They are doing and working with some of the kids or young men and adults from Northwestern regarding some of these lawsuits, Jane.
Margaret, it seems... Margaret, it seems that...
I was just going to say, actually, Ray, to that point, that question has come up many times over the last several weeks, both in professional and personal context. Mm-hmm. And, anyone who has participated in some sort of an elite or rigorous athletic program expects that there is going to be discipline. You're going to have to run if you, come late to practice. You may have to watch film if you are missing the plays in practice. But this goes far beyond that.
Just a little bit. Yeah. There's a difference between running laps and getting humped in a shower. I mean, my goodness. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's far-reaching.
Margaret, it seems, and you said this, there's more coming up, but every day we hear of more and more players speaking out. You said that some of the players, some of the John and Jane Does, are questioning whether they want to be a part of this. Are they coming to you and saying, I know more about this, or are the other players naming them to say, well, so-and-so was involved as well, you might want to speak with them? How are they coming to you, or how are we finding out more?
Yeah, well, no, they're coming to me, and actually the current clients are being very respectful, knowing that not everyone, has the ability to come forward right now. And so it's more, phone calls that either they are, witnesses to what happened or that they were abused themselves, but because of the high-profile nature of the lawsuit and the powers that be over at Northwestern, they're still on the fence about whether they want to actually come forward and take legal action. And
are you finding that it was mostly the coaches that were sort of leading the hazing and these terrible the sexual abuse, or was it other players like upperclassmen?
Yeah, so it seems to be that the upperclassmen were leading the charge here, but really when I kind of hear all of the facts, there's no way the coaches didn't know. This was going on in some cases in front of them. In some cases, they were participants, meaning they were the victims of these hazing episodes. I have some information that, for example, there were coaches who would run through the locker rooms because they would know that if they slowed down, they could get pinned down and hazed. The players that were the victims of the hazing are really hesitant to blame the upperclassmen because it seems like it was just this culture and this cycle of abuse, that the ones who were doing the hazing had been victims themselves. Mm-hmm. And they were just brought up in this culture where, it was, for whatever reason, okay as a rite of passage or to assert their dominance or their power over the younger players and keep them in line to do this kind of thing. So they're, in a way, victims, too.
Yeah.
Margaret Battersby Black, managing partner, Chicago's Levin Perconti. This is wild on so many levels. There's high schools where, even in our area, this has gone on. They've been, taken away from being able to have eligibility for their football seasons, and this goes on in the suburbs. And when you have a kid that's an athlete, and you've done everything you can to put this kid in a position of going to a school like Northwestern, and it's taken so much to get there. And then when they're 14, 15, and 16, and these coaches are like, oh, wait a second, look at this kid. This kid might be our guy. Well, then they take trips to the universities, and they get kind of brought into this culture. And they want to be able to succeed at this level, because this is a very high-level school. Mm-hmm. How much do you think that plays into the hush-hush that went on with all of this, Margaret?
Absolutely huge. I mean, could you imagine? We've all been college kids, leaving our homes. There's enough anxiety in going out and being independent and having to be at a rigorous school and finding your way. And then you add this level of elite athlete training and, wanting to fit in and trying to understand the dynamics of the team. And, these kids were extremely vulnerable. And not only that, but, leading up to their decision, they were basically given sales pitches. And I understand some of the people on this call may have athletes in their families. And I can't imagine, as a parent, and I'm a parent of younger athletes, but certainly, I could imagine being in my home and having someone come in and say, we want your son or we want your daughter to come play for us, and we promise we're going to take care of them. And then I can imagine just being the kid and thinking, God, my parents are so proud of me and everything's riding on me, and well, maybe this is just how it is. I don't want to upset the apple cart, and just the emotional turmoil that they went through. And I've had the opportunity to speak to some of the parents who just feel this guilt, that they didn't know. And it's really just a horrible situation.
Well, we're going to we will stay in touch with you, because I think you've intimated this as well. This is going to get bigger before it goes away. It's going to be around for a long time. And a note to parents that if you have kids, don't get punch drunk on what their success might look like, and listen to them. Margaret Battersby Black from Levin and Perconti. Well, I tell you what, if I ever need you, I'm calling you, because you guys are on task. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Margaret.